Hey everybody, what's up? Back again with a new build. This time it's a Sorcerer Healer. I just made this one for fun really, but it turns out that it works quite well in content. Actually, I've brought it into veteran dungeons and the veteran Craglorn trials. I've not yet tested it in any veteran DLC trials, but I think it should work. Yeah, so let's get right into it. I'll quickly pop a potion here and buff up. We've got 35k max magicka with a huge magicka recovery of 2300. Then we've got 18k max health, which is perfectly fine for us, and 9500 max stamina, but we don't really need stamina that much. Our spell damage is almost 2000, 1988 here, and our spell critical is 29%, but we're a healer. We'll crit one way or another now and then. So we've got 64 points into max magicka. We are using the Atronach Mundustone for the huge magicka recovery that we've got. And then we are also a stage 4 vampire here on this build for even better recovery. Now the health regeneration isn't really that important. You can kind of work against that with using a different food if you wanted to, but I've not had problems so far because you can pretty much heal yourself at all times. And you've got one of the strongest burst heals in the whole game with the matriarch here. So we're just gonna go straight into the skills then. First up on the front bar, which is our restoration staff bar, we've got Energy Orb. This comes from the Undaunted skill line. You unlock it at Undaunted 5 or 6, I think. Morph it to Energy Orb from Necrotic Morb. And what this does is it's an orb that you do that slowly floats forward away from you and heals everyone it touches or it gets close to for 1k health. And then your allies can also activate the Healing Combustion synergy, which heals you, which heals them for 7k health about and restores 3960 magicka or stamina, whichever one is higher. So this is really good for the resources, plus it's a synergy, and we all know that people like to use sets that are relying on synergies like Locestes, etc., or Alkosh. So any synergy we can get is good. Always want to have at least 3 or 4 on the bar if I'm a healer, and this is just great for it. It looks like this, pretty simple. You throw this orb, and there you can see it's healing the bird, it's healing me. And if people use the synergy, they get a big amount of health back and also a big amount of resources back. So then next up from the restoration staff skill line, Illustrious Healing. Morph it from Grand Healing to Illustrious Healing. What this does is it places a circle on the ground which over 12 seconds heals everybody for almost 2k health. So you just always want to make sure that you have this down. That's the circle. Everybody inside of it gets almost 2k health back every 1 second. Next up, first sorcerer skill, the Twilight Matriarch. This comes from the Daedric Summoning skill line. It's the third thing you unlock. Morph it to the Twilight Matriarch from the Winged Twilight. And what this does is you have that Matriarch with you at all times until it dies, but then you can just resummon it. And what it does is it deals shock damage, about 1200 every now and then. And then you can activate the special ability though for 3600 magicka, causing it to heal you and up to 2 other friendly targets for 15k health. So this is a huge burst heal. It's really simple. You just activate it, and if there was anybody with low health, they would get 15k health back right now. And then also, while you're attacking things, it just continuously does a little bit of shock damage, which is nice, just helps the group out a little bit. And then when you need a big heal, you just activate it. Alright, let's quickly put it away so it doesn't go on like this, because it won't stop. There we go. Oh, it starts attacking right away. Alright, next up is the Sanguine Altar. Looks like this. You just place this altar on the ground. It's also from the Undaunted skill line. First thing you unlock there. And what it does is Sacrifice your life essence. This costs 2k health, so don't use that skill if you're at really low health already. And it puts that altar down, which applies minor lifesteal to all the enemies in the area, and it's pretty big radius, 28 meters. So just place it somewhere in the middle, and it's healing all of your allies for almost 1k health, 821, every 1 second when they're damaging the enemies. So if there's a fight going on and people are doing continuous damage, just place this in the middle and everybody's going to get a little bit of health back at all times. And also people can activate the blood funnel synergy, healing for 40% of their max health. So another synergy that we're giving out here, very good. And then the last skill on the bar is from the restoration staff skill line again. This is combat prayer. It's pretty much a healer's bread and butter. Slam your staff down to activate its blessings, healing you and your allies in front of you for 6k health, which is quite good. But more importantly, it also grants minor berserk and minor resolve, increasing your allies' damage done by 8% and physical and spell resistance for 8 seconds. So you give everybody more resistances, but also you really support their damage output because they're doing 8% more damage due to minor berserk. Looks like this. You just gotta point it in the right direction. If this is your team in front of you there, just do it like this, and all of them will get the berserk and the higher spell and physical resistances. So pretty much what you want to do in the front bar is just this down every 8 seconds, place your altar, throw the orb in, and have your bird up, and activate the bird only as a burst heal if somebody's going down on health really low. As an ultimate on the front bar, from the dark magic skill line, we're using the absorption field. This creates a globe of magic suppression for 12 seconds, removing and preventing all enemy area of effect abilities from the area that you place it on. So it's pretty much like a big globe that you place down, and all the enemy AoE effects inside of it are being removed and prevented. So you can really place that over a stack of enemies to make sure that they're not getting the AoE damage output that they should have had. Enemies within the globe are also stunned. And then the globe also heals you and the allies for 1,690 health every 1.5 seconds. So that's over 3k every second. So another pretty cool heal for us. It's one of the better ultimates that the Sorcerer has here, especially for the healing. I even tend to use this in the other morph on a DD once in a while. If you're just running into big ad pools, like say in Veteran Hellrav, and you got all these people coming onto you, you just place down that globe and they're all being suppressed, and everybody from your allies that's in it gets healed and all. Very nice ultimate. Alright, then on the back bar we're using a destruction staff, a shock staff. Here we've got elemental drain. What this does is it afflicts enemies with major breach for 22 seconds, reducing their spell resistance, but also it applies minor magic steal for 22 seconds, causing all your allies to restore 300 magicka every 1 second while they're damaging them. So always try to keep that up every 22 seconds on the boss, so your allies get magicka back, and major breach is always on the boss as well. This comes from the destruction staff skill line, obviously. It's the second to last thing you unlock, morph it to elemental drain from weakness of elements. There is one other skill you could use, that would be crushing shock, if you're in charge of interrupting something, because oftentimes in trials there are bosses like the twins in Veteran Mavlocage or in Veteran Asylum Sanctorium, the first boss with the poison, that need a lot of interrupting. So if you need to do that, and the other healer's already running this, because only one healer needs to put this on every 22 seconds, so if the other guy is doing it and taking care of it, you might as well run some other skill or crushing shock in case you need to interrupt someone. And then there's a bunch of other nice skills that you could use as well. So next up is Power Surge. This comes from the Stormcalling skill line. It starts out as Surge. If you morph it to Power Surge, every time you activate it, you get Major Brutality and Major Sorcery, increasing your spell damage by 20% for 33 seconds. But also, while it's active, activating a critical heal causes the ability to heal you and all your allies around you for 3k health. And it can occur every 3 seconds, so it can pop up quite a lot. And you will get some crit heals in, definitely, mainly with your bird When you activate that, it's got a good chance to crit. Or with all of your other healing abilities, really, the Orb, the Illustrious Healing, the Combat Prayer can crit as well. Alright, so that's why you want this up. Looks like this. You just have that up, and then you can see the buff timer running out there. You got the 3 buffs that are all lasting for about 30 seconds. And every crit heal you do now will cause this thing to heal everybody around you for an extra amount. So just try to keep that up all the time anyway. Next up on the back bar is of course the bird again, because we need to double bar it, otherwise it would disappear every time we swap bars. And then we've got our 2 shock damage skills. We've got Lightning Flood here. This comes from the Storm Calling skill line, third thing you unlock. Create a nexus of storm energy at the target location, dealing 1500 shock damage to enemies in the area every 1 second for 10 seconds. And more importantly, the allies standing within it can activate the conduit synergy, dealing 6500 shock damage. So you give them another synergy. This is the 3rd synergy we've got on the bars. And the reason we're doing this is because it's nice to put a little AoE damage down, because we have some damage potential, especially being a sorcerer. We have passives that increase all our shock damage anyway, which is why I chose not to go double resto, but with the lightning stuff on the back bar here. So we can make use of the elemental drain. We can have a little bit of extra shock damage and the 2nd synergy, and then we can also use the wall of elements here. That's the last thing on our skill bar. Comes from the destruction stuff skill line. It doesn't really matter what morph you use. This used to be my DD, that's why I morphed it to the unstable wall of elements, which lasts only 10 seconds and not 12. You can obviously for a healer build use just the random the other morph, the wall of elements, that doesn't do the explosion in the end but lasts for 12 seconds. Doesn't really matter too much though, because we're rotating bars quite quickly and all. So it's not like we have a whole lot of shit to do on our front bar to before it runs out there. It gives a little bit of extra damage boost as well with the explosion in the end. So this is called Unstable Wall of Elements. If you play a shock stuff, it'll be called Unstable Wall of Storms. And what it does is slam your stuff down to create an unstable storm barrier in front of you, dealing 1000 shock damage every 1 second. And setting concussed enemies off balance for 7 seconds. So we've got the chance to get concussion and proc off balance from it, which will cause all the enemies to take more damage than they usually would. When the effect ends, the barrier explodes, dealing 5300 shock damage. So as you can see on our back bar, we're a bit more DPS orientated with Lightning Flood and Unstable Wall. Yeah, and especially since we are a sorcerer and we do have increased shock damage, we might as well make a little use of that and give the group a tiny little boost, because we're not really losing out on much. You can just morph this one to Liquid Lightning and it lasts longer, and morph this one to Wall of Elements, or Elemental Blockade it is, and then it lasts longer. But as I said, on our front bar, we're pretty much putting this down, throwing an orb now and then, putting the altar down, and then we have Combat Prayer to keep up every 8 seconds. So we don't really need to do too much on our front bar, and I didn't have a problem with any of these running out or just reapplying them by the time they run out. Last thing we've got here is the Aggressive Horn. This comes from the Assault skill line. You need to play PvP for that. It unlocks at level 4. And what it does is sound a war horn to rally your forces, and everybody in your group will get 10% more max magicka and max stamina for 30 seconds. And also they will gain major force for 7 seconds, increasing their critical damage done by 15%. Now as you can see, I haven't really leveled the horn yet, so this will go up from 7 seconds to I think 10 seconds. And what you really want it for is give them the resources and the major force, increasing all of their critical damage done for a short while, the 10 seconds. But it can really make a difference if you're an execute, or if you've got 2 tanks with warhorns and 2 healers with warhorns, and they can just rotate and alternate it, so you pretty much have a very high uptime on it then. Now, yeah, so much for the skills. Obviously there are a shitload of other good skills for healers. For sword healers, mainly in the resto stuff skill line, you can always put rapid regeneration on, on your front bar, or the Steadfast Ward, especially if you're in a situation where you'd like to play the Black Rose Prison Resto stuff, or the Maelstrom one for regeneration. But that's all like optional skills, so the build works very well with the skills we've got right here. We do have enough healing output. Our healing is quite powerful as well, and if you need to do anything else, you'll just have to adapt, but that's just a healer's life really. You can't really say you're just gonna run this setup and the sets I'm wearing just all the time, because healers have to be very versatile with the skills that they're using and with the sets that they're using. So this is just a basic setup that can get you through all of the DLC dungeons and Craglorn trials, even veteran Craglorn trials. But if you want to go deeper into dealing and go into endgame content, you'll have to unlock a couple other skills like regeneration, Steadfast Ward, etc, etc. Now another thing we've got here is Purge. That's a great skill to unlock as well. Cleanse yourself and your group, removing up to 3 negative effects immediately. That can be very helpful if you're in Halls of Fabrication, for example. If you're being set on fire, or if the lasers slow you down and all that. The shock beams, I mean. So this is also a very good thing to have. And obviously Barrier, which I haven't unlocked in this character yet because I dread playing PvP really. Invoke defensive tactics to protect yourself and your group with a ward that absorbs up to 26k damage for 30 seconds. So if there's a lot of incoming damage, Barrier is a great skill to have on the front bar. You already have the absorption field, which is preventing enemy AoE damage and heals people that stand inside of it, so you can also drop that on there. But if you need something even stronger, just try to unlock the Barrier. I think it unlocks at support 6, so just gonna have to play a bunch of PvP to get there. Okay, we already Breton on this build. I think it's pretty much the best race for healers right now all around. It will probably also work with the High Elf and all, but our skills are quite expensive if you look at it. The Orb is about 3k Magicka, and then mostly the Lightning Flood and Elemental Blockade are 4k Magicka each, so we want to keep these up at all times. And then the Burst Heal from the Matriarch is also 3k Magicka. So we do have some expensive skills on the bar, and hence I think Breton being the best race for Sorcerer Healer in general, because increases your max Magicka by 2000, so you get an extra free max Magicka just for being a Breton. Then increases your Magicka recovery by 100, and then also reduces the cost of all your Magicka abilities by 7%. So that is very helpful for us. We do have some class skills, which I'll get into in a second. And yes, you could also try and run this on an Argonian, a High Elf, any race really that has some sort of Magicka bonus, but none are going to be as effective as the Breton on it. So let's get into the passives for a second here, because sorcerers do actually have some very nice passives for Magicka abilities and all. Reduces the health, Magicka, and stamina costs of your abilities for 6%. Just like that. You already have, being a Breton, you already have a 7% reduction, and this reduces them for another 6%. So really cool. The Unholy Knowledge, definitely get that. Blood Magic is not really too important. When you hit an enemy with a directly applied Dark Magic ability, heal for 2300. The only thing we're playing from here really is the Absorption Field ultimate, and it's an ultimate, so you're not going to do that too often, especially if you want to pump out the Warhorn and support the group, increasing their damage more as well. So yeah, Blood Magic, just get it if you have the skill points, but it's not really necessary for the build. Persistence though, after blocking an attack, your next health, Magicka, stamina ability costs 15% less, and you do definitely block in trials, especially in veteran trials once in a while, so I'd get that for sure. And then when you cast a Dark Magic ability, you get Minor Prophecy, increasing your spell critical rating by 1300 for 20 seconds. Now, our crit heals, I think, also come from our spell critical rating, therefore I'd get that as well. Here's the Daedric summoning passives. When your pet is killed or unsummoned, you restore 1400 magicka. Definitely get that, because the pet will die once in a while, and then you need to resummon it, and you restore magicka just because it being killed. Reduces the cost of your ultimate abilities by 15%. That's really cool. So we can pump out a lot more Warhorns and absorption fields if we have to, than other classes would. So ultimate cost reduction is definitely always worth it. Then increases your health stamina recovery by 20% while you have a Daedric summoning ability slotted. We do have the pet on both bars, so we get an increased 20% health and stamina recovery, which helps out and counters the vampire being a vampire out a little bit. Expert Summoner increases your health by 8% while you have a pet active. So we get an extra free 8% max health just for having the pet on both bars. So definitely get all of these, they're really good. Sorcerers have some great passives. And then we're going into the Stormcalling passives. Increases your magicka recovery by 10%, just like that. Adding to the fact that you're a Breton and you already have high magicka recovery. This really pushes you over the 2000 mark. So you're not going to have a problem sustaining, even though our skills are quite expensive. Increases your physical and shock damage by 5%, so this boosts our liquid lightning / lightning flood and elemental blockade quite a bit. Then increases the damage done against enemies by 1% for every 10% current health they have. So this is more of an execute thing, or like actually a pre-execute thing, but either way, get it, because more damage, even if it's just a little amount, is always great. And then increases your weapon and spell damage for each sorcerer ability slotted. We've got 6% on the back bar, so because we got 3 sorcerer abilities slotted on the back bar, so definitely get that as well. Alright then, destruction stuff and rest of stuff, I don't need to tell you, you want all of the passives. These are our main weapons, so definitely get all of the passives in here. Light armor, you want all of them. Medium armor, all you really need is Windwalker and Athletics, because these only count when you have 5 or more pieces of medium armor equipped, which we don't have. And then we don't really sneak around too much, and also we don't have any abilities that are physical abilities, and weapon critical wouldn't help us very much. Heavy armor, just get all of these for increased health recovery, physical and spell resistance, and max health. It just makes you a bit bulkier. But the last two are again only when you have 5 or more pieces of heavy armor, which we don't have, so we're not going to use that. You don't need anything in Ledgerman or Soul Magic, but Vampire, definitely get the supernatural recovery, so your magicka recovery is increased by another 10%. Undeath, so you are a bit bulkier, and it reduces your damage taken when your health is below 50%. And then the Unnatural Resistance, which helps a bit to counter the severity of the health recovery determined in Vampirism stages 2 through 4, because we always are on stage 4 basically, unless we're really going into some fire heavy trial and we want to get it up to like 3 or 2 for that. Fighter's Guild, you don't need anything. Mage's Guild, you don't need anything either. Undaunted, you want to get all of these. I know I don't have them yet, but definitely go for them, because we are wearing a piece of each type of armor, heavy, medium, and light. So you want to get more than the 3% that I've got there right now from the Undaunted Metal, and also Undaunted Command, because healers can activate synergies as well. You know, oftentimes you've got, say, Templar damage dealers, or the other healer throws an orb, and you might as well just grab it, and it'll help you restore more health, stamina, and magicka then. Assault, you don't really need any of that. Support, if you're slotting Barrier or Purge, you might want to get Magicka Aid, increases your magicka recovery for each support ability slotted, but that's the only thing that's good in these Alliance War passives. Obviously your racial passives, you want to get all of them. And then Alchemy, you want to get Medicinal Use, just so your potions last 30% longer, and you can have 100% uptime on them if you needed to. Brings us to potions and food. I forgot that in the beginning there. It's a very cheap one. We're pretty much just using Tri-Stat potions. You can craft these or just use the Crown Tri-Stat potions that give you health, magicka, and stamina back, and also increase your health recovery, magicka recovery, and stamina recovery for 20%. Failing that, if you don't want to craft expensive tripods or use your Crown Tri Restoration potions, just go with the plain old Essence of Magicka trash pots. You get 6k Magicka, and also get the Major Intellect, which increases your Magicka regeneration by 20%. So very cheap to sustain here. Same for food. We're just going with the flat out max health, max Magicka food. I've tried this build in a couple different variations, but if you're a Breton, and with all of the Magicka recovery bonuses that we have for being a Breton and a Sorcerer, there's no need to run Clockwork, Citrus Fillet, or Witch Mothers or anything. Just go with the max health, max Magicka. If you have money to spend, you can go with Disastrous Bloody Mara, which also gives you max health and max Magicka, and adds an extra 500 health recovery to it. And it also lasts for 2 hours, but just the plain blue food for max health and max Magicka will be perfectly fine. Alright then. Let's quickly go into the CP before we check out the sets. Obviously, red CPs are subject to change. Depends on which trial you're doing. So this is just a standard setup that's going to work in most dungeons and trials, but if you're going into veteran trials, you might want to check out online CP guides for where to put your red CPs then. You've got 72 into Ironclad, 16 into Spell Shield for a little bit more spell resistance. Ironclad is for direct damage attacks. Then we've got 51 Thick Skinned, 56 Elemental Defender and Hardy to get 12% each of physical poison and disease damage and Flame Frost Shock magic damage, and a general 19% damage reduction from damage over time abilities. Then we've got 19 into Quick Recovery, increasing the healing received by 5%. That's also if we heal ourselves. 44 into Warlord for the reduced cost of Break Free. 75 and 75 into Arcanist and Tenacity. 20 into Shadow Ward for a 9% block cost reduction because we don't really have too much stamina to waste. And 56 points into Tumbling for a 20% roll dodge cost reduction. We've got 75 into Bless to increase all of our healing done by 14%. 66 into Elfborn to increase our critical healing with magic abilities by 22%. 49 into Elemental Expert to increase our shock damage even a bit more, and then 21 into Spell Erosion to increase our spell penetration a bit more. These 21 points, to be honest, I just didn't really know where else to put them, and I wanted to grab the passives here. You can also put them into Staff Expert if you want to, just have like 10 or 11 in Spell Erosion, and then put the rest into Staff Expert for your light and heavy attacks if you enjoy doing a lot of heavy attacks as a healer. That's why we've got 3 points in here, because also I didn't really know where to put these. There's no point really putting them anywhere else. And then over here we've just got 56 into Thaumaturge, increasing the damage done with damage over time effects by 20%. Yeah, there's not really any point in any of this. You could try to get the Exploiter passive because of the extra damage for off balance, but then you'd need 75 points in here, so I guess you could just pump some more into Thaumaturge or put some into Precise Strikes in case you're ever going to use Vigor or some stamina healing ability, and then just take a couple out of here and then put them over there. But the off balance is only going to proc if you're going to stay on that bar anyway, which brings me to a sort of rotation-ish kind of thing. When you're in your back bar, you want to get your blockade down first before you do anything else. Then put your power surge up, then put your liquid lightning down, because the blockade can proc the off balance and concussion, but only if you're on that bar while it procs. So if it's the last thing you do, the blockade, and then you swap, it pretty much, you'd have like 1 second to hope that concussion or off balance procs, and it's just not worth it. So you need a bit of time on that bar here. Then put Ellie Drain on and all to actually have it be able to proc, because we're using two different weapons, right? We're using Arresto stuff on the front bar, lightning stuff on the back bar, so all of the passives here from the Destro stuff are only going to work while we're on that bar. So if you do the blockade and then swap immediately, you're losing out on all of the passives. that are also responsible for the off-balance concussion slash thing. Okay, so we'll quickly get into the gear we're using here. There are so many sets that you can use as a healer depending on what you want to do, or what content you're in, or if you're with more stamina DDs, if you're with more magicka DDs, what the other healer's wearing. So I've just created this build because it works. It has strong healing, it gives people resources back, it gives you your own resources back, and you can generally do all the content with it. Obviously there are tons of other choices. We're going with the Asylum's resto stuff here because we do have some expensive skills, and this one comes from Asylum Sanctorium, the trial. You can get the perfected version or the imperfected version, doesn't really matter. You want it empowered with an absorb magicka enchant to help your own sustain and increase your healing done when you're on your actual healing bar. And when you cast Blessing of Protection, which is the morph that morphs to Combat Prayer, the cost of your magic and stamina healing abilities are reduced by 27% for 3 seconds. So Combat Prayer here, we want to keep that up every 8 seconds, and then you can use another healing skill after it that's a little more expensive, like say Combat Prayer and then the Orb, or Combat Prayer and then the Blood Altar. Either way, the next skill for the 3 seconds is gonna be less expensive. Hence we're using this stuff to help ourselves sustain. If you find that you don't struggle with sustain, you can obviously use another front bar stuff. There are 4 in total that are pretty good. Well, the Black Rose one is only really good if you use the Steadfast Ward from the resto skill line, this one here, because it boosts that skill in particular. And then you could have the Maelstrom stuff, for example. When you critically heal with regeneration, you restore magicka. So if you had regeneration and then morph to rapid regeneration, I think it is, on your bar and use that, the Maelstrom stuff would be good as well. The Asylum stuff that we're using boosts this one, and if you wanted to and you are able to finish Veteran Dragonstar Arena, you can go with the Masters stuff that would give everybody who stands in your Illustrious healing, which is on our bar, stamina back every time you activate the skill. So that's also very nice, especially for stamina DDs. If you can get the Master stuff, you can use that one. Other than that, the Asylum's resto stuff is probably very much easier to farm. And failing that, if you don't have that one, just use any other resto stuff, like a willpower one, that you can just buy from the guild traders. Alright, so next up, back bar set is Olorimes. The reason why I say back bar set, we have the lightning stuff here. It's with a shock damage enchant, and then in charged to increase the chance to apply the status effect by 200%, because we do want to get that concussion and off balance for the whole group then. Now, Olorimes gives you magicka recovery, minor Aegis at all times, reducing your damage taken from dungeon and trial monsters and arena monsters by 5%. Another 124 magicka recovery, and then casting an ability that leaves an effect on the ground in combat will create a circle of might for 10 seconds. You and your allies in the circle gain major courage for 30 seconds, increasing the weapon and spell damage by 258. This effect can occur every 10 seconds. So this is our back bar set. We're only using this on the back bar staff and on the jewelry. Olorimes ring and necklace. I've got 2 spell damage enchants on the rings and 1 magicka recovery enchant on the necklace. You can also go 3 spell damage. It's pretty much your playstyle then, if you're running out of magicka, or if you're good with a little less recovery. But the good thing is you don't need to morph any of these, just leave them in arcane for the max magicka and change the glyph on them. Now, we've only got this on the back bar. As you can see right now, I've got my front bar weapon equipped, so we don't get these bonuses here on the front bar. 3 out of 5. Now if I swap to my back bar, it'll say 5 out of 5. We've got the full set equipped, staffs count for 2 items. And the reason we only want this on the back bar, because I know that if I'm starting my back bar rotation out with the blockade, I just told you why, so we get more time to actually have a chance to proc concussion and all. and off balance, this Olorimes circle is always gonna be procced by my blockade. So every time I switch to my back bar, this is the first thing I do, and I want to stand behind my team who are in front of the boss. And the blockade is long enough to go through all of them and reach the boss, but it also will be on them for the chance of proccing the circle. Now what I mean by that is, wait, let me grab this guy here. We'll quickly put him over here. Maybe a little bit closer. Now imagine that skeleton here is my ally, and that is the boss. And there's like 5 people or 10 people standing here fighting that boss. And I'm behind them, and I do the elemental blockade, which will get that Olorimes circle down here. So everybody standing in front of the boss fighting him will get the major courage buff. And the boss, as you can see here, is still afflicted by the Olorimes. So this is how you use Olorimes. Your team's in front of you, you're in fight, you're doing the elemental blockade, all of your team is in that circle, gets the great buff, and the boss still gets hurt by the elemental blockade, and there's a chance to proc off balance. So you just renew that every time it runs out. That's where your Olorimes circle comes from. And that's how you can place it so that people actually get it. Now, it would also work with liquid lightning, but then again, that's kind of a short range because the lightning circle isn't too big, and you kind of want the lightning to land on the boss and not on the group. So I'd always go with blockade first. So every time you're on your back bar, first thing you do, elemental blockade, your whole team gets the buff and the boss gets the lightning damage from the blockade. That is why we only need Olorimes on the back bar, because all it does is that circle, and we can do that just on the back bar, which allows us to use another rest of stuff on the front bar. Now, the next set we've got is for resource management, especially since I'm not using the master staff on this build, but the asylum staff. We need to take care of our team's resources a little bit, and that's where Symphony of Blades comes in. This is giving you 4% healing done. It drops from Depths of Malatar and Veteran, by the way. When you heal an ally who's under 50% of their primary resource, you grant them Meridia's Favor, which restores 2,200 magic or stamina every 1 second for 6 seconds. It can occur every 18 seconds. The resource return is based off the target's highest maximum resource. So if it's Magicka DDs, they'll get Magicka. If it's Stamina DDs, they'll get Stamina. And they will run under 50% of their resources, probably. And if they don't, then they don't have a problem anyway. So every time you heal someone, you give them Magicka or Stamina back. That's why we're using this set, because we don't yet have anything else in our group that is giving our team resources back. You want the big pieces in Infused, and then the small pieces in Divines. So big pieces meaning head, chest infused, legs infused, small pieces all in Divines. And max Magicka enchant on everything through the bank. You don't really need any tri-stats here because our health pool with 18k is quite high anyway. So we'd rather just go all out max Magicka. If you can't get this because Depths of Malatar and Veteran is too hard for you, your group might struggle with resources a bit, but there's obviously other options, mainly Sentinel of Rakugams. Adds 4% healing done as well, and when you heal yourself or an ally, you have a 10% chance to summon a Dwemer Spider that heals the people and also restores 111 Magicka and Stamina to all the allies within 5 meters every 1 second for 8 seconds. So this gives them a little bit of resources back and adds a little bit of healing. It got nerfed, but it's still a pretty good set, and I definitely go for this if you can't go get Symphony of Blades, because both add healing done, which we need as a sorcerer because we don't really have many sources that boost our healings and our passives, and also gives your group resources back. Sentinel of Rakugams comes from, I think it's Darkshade Caverns 1, so it's fairly simple dungeon to do. If you can't get Symphony yet, just go with this one. And then failing that, if your group is all good on resources and everything, and You might as well just use Bot Gun, the Night Flames, which is just gives you max magicka and just summons a totem that heals everybody even more. So that's if you need even more healing than you already have, but honestly you should be fine with the way we're set up. So I'd definitely go for Symphony first choice, Sentinel second choice here, and then Bot Guns if you can't get either of those. But I think Darkshade Caverns 1 is pretty easy to do, so definitely these two here. Next up, Robe of the Healer. Yeah, some people are probably going to laugh at that choice, but it adds max magicka, it adds magicka recovery and spell damage, so it adds a little bit of everything that a healer actually needs, plus gain minor mending at all times, increasing your healing done by %. So just for wearing this set, we get all of the resources we need, and we get minor mending, increasing all of our healing done. Now, let me take that bird away because it just keeps on attacking the Atronach here. If we go into our tooltips from the rest of the stuff, this one heals for 1,900 health, this one for 6,300. It's only 8%, but it is quite a lot. If I take that away and lose the 5-piece bonus, it's only 1,700 health every 1 second though, so over 12 seconds you're missing out on quite a bit. And this one's only 5,800. And generally all of our healing skills, even the bird, the altar, the orb, everything that heals will be less. So the choice is yours. Obviously you can also get Yorwald's Guidance, for example, which increases all the duration of minor and major buffs, or you could go with Century, which increases the healing done if people are stacked around you, or you could go with Coldheart's Favorite here, which summons that little mount that heals everybody for 15k over 4 seconds. There are so many good sets really, but if I had to choose one, I'd definitely go with the healer one, just because of the really nice flat stats and the minor mending at all times. Sorcerers don't have any other source of minor mending from their skills or passives, so this just boosts our healing at all times. Century only does if the people are stacked around you very closely. I think it's just like a 8 or 10 meter radius. And then Yorwald's is also a very great healer set. A lot of people run that. It adds another 4% healing done. Whereas this one will give us minor mending, which adds 8. So Yorwald's is also a really nice choice. But for a beginner's sort of build, for just random veteran dungeons, DLC dungeons, and Craglorn trials, even stuff like Veteran Ethereal Archive or so, if you're not running the hard mode in particular, I would seriously just go for the flat out stats and flat out healing bonus, because you get that at all times, not just the people that are stacked around you. If you have to split up in a trial like Hellra or Ethereal Archive, only one of us going to get that and stuff. So yeah, it is definitely a very nice set just for the minor mending here. And it's also quite easy to get. Like Dragonstar Arena on normal is really simple, and this shit drops from like all the chests, so you probably just have to do like 2 or 3 runs if you've got 4 people to get it. But as I said before, if you don't want to farm that, or you don't think that minor mending at all times is a good idea with all these nice little flat stats here, just go for Yorwald's, farm Scalecaller, or get someone to craft you Cold Harbors, or grab someone to craft you to farm Century with. There's tons of good healer sets in this game. I just wanted one on this one that gives me more flat out healing and resources at all times, and makes all of my skills stronger in general. Alright then, there is one thing you can do on a sorcerer especially, which is kinda nice, and that's martial knowledge. People are talking a lot about that, especially in the endgame community at the moment. So if you put martial knowledge on the body, it gives everybody a really nice damage buff. Max magicka, 2 spell damage bonuses. When your stamina is under 50%, your light attacks cause the enemy to take 8% additional damage for 5 seconds. So I think it's very stressful to try and keep that up. But the sorcerer has a skill which is kind of destined for that. And that would be the dark conversion skill from the dark magic skill line. Bargain with darkness to restore 10k health and 3600 magicka. And an additional 2000 magicka over 20 seconds for 2k stamina. Now our stamina pool in general is very low. We've only got 9400, so you need to push this skill like 3 times and then you're under 50% stamina. Just quickly put it on. Probably put it instead of power surge really, or maybe blood altar. All the other skills are you kind of need them, or maybe lightning flood. Let's just put it here for a second. Looks like this. Lose stamina, gain magicka. Obviously our magicka is full right now, but as you can see our stamina bar is going down. And then if you're forced to wear martial knowledge, or if you want to wear it because you like it for some reason, you need to do a light attack while you're below 50%. So what you're doing is you just mind your business, go about everything like you normally would, and if you got the time to, just spam dark conversion a little bit until you're on 50% and throw a light attack at the boss. And then they'll get that extra 8% damage. Just make sure not to forget about your healing though. And also remember that if you drain your stamina like that, you might need to roll dodge at some point and you won't be able to. Or something like that anyway. But since sorcerers have that skill, they're kind of destined, because it's a lot easier to keep that up that way than to constantly bash the bosses while you're trying to heal people. So it is an option, running with martial knowledge, and a little bit more meta-ish too. So that is something you can offer to a trials group if you wanted to. I'll just go back to healer though, because that works very fine in all kinds of content. And then put my power surge back on the bar. Alright, that's about it. I don't think I forgot anything. Let's quickly go over the traits again. You want your resto stuff, whether it be the masters or the asylums, empowered for the extra healing with a absorb magic enchant. You want a shock damage enchant and a charged or infused lightning stuff on the back bar from Olorimes set, so your blockade can proc off balance, concussion, and the Olorimes circle. You want the jewelry in arcane with either 3 spell damage glyphs or 2 spell damage and 1 magicka recovery glyph. And you want all the big pieces in infused, legs, chest, head, and all the small pieces in divines. All of them with max magicka enchant. Symphony of Blades is the top spot. Sentinel of Rakugams is the second option here. And then here, either Healer, Yorvold, Century, Cold Harbors, whatever you want really. Doesn't really matter. Martial Knowledge if you're using the other skill. But generally the way it's set up like this is solid. You've got enough healing, you've got powerful healing. You do give resources back via your monster set. And you can give even more resources back if you manage to get your hands on the master stuff. And you give everybody the strong Olorimes buff of Major Courage as well. So it's pretty safe setup. You're definitely able to keep your heals up and give some resources back to the team and do everything you're supposed to do as a healer really. Okay then, I hope you enjoyed this. Have fun sorcerer healing. It's actually quite nice. I did enjoy it quite a lot. Remember to put the blockade down first for the Olorimes circle if you're on your back bar, and other than that, just use your skills as they run out. Provide your synergies. Okay, have fun, enjoy this build, and if you are a sorcerer healer, let me know how you're running yours. I'd be interested to hear that. See you later.